In this documentary film, we are using plain colloquial English, the language of the shop floor. Inspired by David Cameron's Big Society, we are doing our bit to improve the quality of the community by telling the public and ratepayers how their money has been squandered by public officials. They have been using public money as their own milch cow in Dorset for such a long time that it is now a modus operandi. To understand how this has happened, you need to look at the incestuous nature of the Dorset authorities and how the elected members that should be in charge of stopping unethical practice are in fact milking the system into meltdown. Are these pigs all having their snouts in the ratepayers' trough? We see in the Dorset Echo the Chief Constable Martin Baker and the Chairman of the Police Authority Michael Taylor complains that they are potless. Dorset Police will be cutting 248 jobs by March 2012 in order for the force to save £18 million over the next 4 years. The staggering loss to the county's force was agreed yesterday by members of the Dorset Police Authority who had to make their hardest decision to date. Chairman of the authority, Mike Taylor, told members, "We live in tough times," as they heard a report from the force's Chief Constable Martin Baker. He told the authority that the worst case scenario would mean losing 530 staff by 2015. 20% of the workforce. Mr. Baker told the Echo, "There is absolutely no doubt that as a result of the financial situation in which we find ourselves, Dorset Police will in future have fewer officers and staff." Quite what this will look like in terms of exact numbers is a work in progress. He stressed that it is important to recognise that a reduction in the number of people in our workforce does not necessarily equate to that number of individuals losing their jobs or a reduction in our performance. He confirmed that all stations in Dorset will be assessed, and if savings can be made by entering into a shared community arrangement, it will. The only station this currently applies to is Swanage, where the force is talking to Purbeck District Council about using a shared area in the town hall. Despite the financial situation, authority members voted against a proposal to increase the authority's share of council tax, which will remain frozen for next year. Chairman of Dorset Police Federation, Clive Chamberlain, told the authority that he was disappointed with the government's decision to impose such dramatic cuts that are setting up forces to fail. After the meeting, he said that morale was low amongst the force's staff. In actual fact, Mr. Baker and other senior officers do not care about providing a service to the ratepayers. They do not even consider themselves to be public servants. Especially as Baker is paid more than the Prime Minister David Cameron, both he and Taylor have enjoyed substantial remuneration at the Dorset ratepayers' expense, along with fine wining and dining and all the civic receptions, using you, the taxpayers' money. Dorset Police are currently dealing with a shortfall of £6.7 million. As part of the cost-saving changes implemented on January the 4th, the force did lose 2 chief superintendents and 2 superintendents. The Chief Constable, Martin Baker, is the only person who has taken a substantial decrease of £14,261 since 2008 to 2009. But this is due to his pension contributions reaching the maximum amount allowed. Martin Baker, Chief Constable, a pay decrease of £14,261 since 2008-2009. 2009 to 2010 salary £165,035. This includes a salary of £137,354, bonuses of £12,511, car allowance £2,417, and the pension contributions £12,753. Michael Taylor, OBE, of Orchard House, Lee, Sherborne, Dorset, DT9 6HL. He has been described as a parasite pouncing off of the ratepayers. He is a retired brigadier with an army pension. He keeps quiet about his military career. Somehow, he is well paid for serving on other quangos apart from Dorset Police Authority, the Immigration Appeal Tribunal and the Solicitors Disciplinary Tribunal. How he became involved with the Law Society with no legal background is a mystery to us. He is also a Deputy Lord Lieutenant of Dorset. The Old Boy Network appears to be doing its job well, with disappointment. From 2001 to 2002, Taylor received expenses of £2,521.53. This is before he took control of the police authority from Peter Jones. Now he is chairman. From April 2009 to March 2010, he received £26,729.70 of Dorset ratepayers' money. The incestuousness of the Dorset authorities first came to our attention in 1995, when the clerk to the police authority, Peter Harvey, was also Chief Executive of Dorset County Council. At that time, he had more hats on his head than a Mad Hatter's tea party. He was Director of Dorset Training and Enterprise, Head of Dorset Business Link, Head of Dorset Chamber of Commerce, and any other pie he could get a dirty finger into. He became Chairman of Dorset NHS Trust Board. We do not know how he could be trusted when he was actively involved in covering up misconduct of former Deputy Chief Constable Andy May, and along with Michael Taylor, who put himself as chairman of the committee dealing with complaints against senior officers, proceeded to obstruct powers granted by statute, a common criminal offence. They did this by ignoring written criminal allegations against Andy May, set out by London lawyers at the time. These two parasites were being well paid with Dorset ratepayers' money, when they should have had these allegations against May investigated by an officer of the same rank from an outside force in accordance with the Police and Criminal Evidence Act at the time. At the time, when Taylor and Harvey were obstructing powers granted by statute, Jane Stitchbury was Chief Constable of Dorset Police. She was also accomplice to obstructing the criminal allegations against Andy May being investigated by an outside force. At the time, she, along with Harvey and Taylor, wasted over £40,000 of Dorset ratepayers' money by illegally funding a private civil action of PC Andrew Cully against Barry Hunt of Weymouth. Stitchbury, along with the connivance of Taylor and Harvey, did this ultra-virus act against Section 222 of the Local Government Act 1972, which states that local authorities can only institute civil proceedings in their own name. In fact, Kathleen Rice, head of Dorset County Council Legal Services, paid £350 of Dorset ratepayers' money to institute these proceedings on 27th of June 2001. Mr. Bighead Peter Harvey a qualified lawyer, realised that this was an illegal ultra-virus act and tried to sanitise it retrospectively by having a meeting of the police authority the following day on the 28th of June 2001, where they illegally approved funding of this civil claim up to £20,000. In fact, it went over budget by a further £22,000. Instead of going to prison for gross misconduct in public office for a common law criminal offence, Stitchbury retired from Dorset Police on a nice, fat, enhanced pension, paid for by the Dorset ratepayers, and got employment as Her Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary, auditing her own former Dorset police force in the hope that they could keep this gross misconduct covered up and buried. Their standard of integrity and their ethics lay somewhere below that of Saddam Hussein. In fact, prior to the invasion of Iraq, Hans Blitz was telling everyone that Saddam had no weapons of mass destruction, but they still invaded his country and hung him. At the time when Stitchbury was Chief Constable, secret papers fell into the hands of the Sun newspaper. The newspaper article revealed that Iraq's Foreign Minister, Tariq Aziz, who was widely seen on British TV giving Masonic handshakes and broadcasting propaganda prior to the invasion of Iraq, was going to be housed in one of Prince Charles' £1 million properties at Poundbury. Instead of Aziz being transferred to Guantanamo Bay, he was going to be given a new identity and a 24-hour police bodyguard provided by Dorset Police at the ratepayers' expense. This does not surprise us, considering that the ethics and standards of integrity of the Dorset regime under Stitchbury was not so different from the regime that Aziz had just left. Also, when Jane Stitchbury was incumbent as Chief Constable of Dorset, she turned a blind eye to various Masonic councillors, committing a common law criminal offence of misconduct in public office, when voting through the planning applications of Eddie Fry, who was in the same lodge as the councillors who did not declare an interest and stand themselves down and refrain from voting through Brother Fry's applications. This became the subject of a BBC television programme, Anything to Declare? This programme is on our TV channel, but it was not screened across the south of England. It was said that the reason this programme was not widely broadcast was because the misconduct was getting too close to Prince Charles and his huge housing development at Poundbury, Dorchester, when Eddie Fry's company was the main developer for Bonnie Prince Charles.
This councillor is a Freemason, but he doesn't always tell the public when he votes. Neither does this councillor. Do we need a register of Freemasons to force them to be more open?
There's nothing to hide. Why give the impression that you've got...
At the time, the National Code of Local Government Conduct that was in force was a statutory instrument. Therefore, breaching it was the same as a breach of statute law. As it had statutory force, that Code of Conduct stated that councillors had to declare membership of organisations such as trade unions and Freemasonry. It was brought to Jane Stitchbury's attention that if you breach the Code of Conduct, it amounts to misconduct, and that misconduct in public office is an indictable criminal offence. It was further brought to her attention when it was reported to her directly on the 4th of July 2000 that to breach the Code of Conduct once could be a mistake, to breach the Code of Conduct a couple of times could be grounds for a warning, but to breach the code of conduct repeatedly, the amount of times that these councillors did, was a course of conduct that amounted to misconduct in public office, or to give it its correct Latin name as a criminal offence, misfeasance. Stitchbury ignored the criminal offences and steered these allegations toward the chief executives of the councils involved and the local government ombudsman. This was another waste of public money, as the ombudsman can only investigate maladministration. He knows very well that he cannot investigate misconduct in public office, as this is a criminal matter for the police. Unfortunately, Stitchbury and the elected members have all been pissing in the same pot for a very long time. You can see detailed evidence on all of this on Mason's Corner of our website at www.dorsetvictimsupport.org. Following our expose of this, a new Code of Local Government Conduct was issued, dropping the words Freemasonry, and therefore allowing these parasites too much leeway for Masonic hanky-panky. The Royal Bournemouth and Christchurch Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust. This is what Stitchbury looks like now, with her hair dyed, out of uniform, and the hope that her police misconduct will never catch up with her. She has been further well rewarded for covering all this up by being made chairman of this NHS Trust. We asked the question, how can you trust her? If you have a complaint against the NHS Trust, no doubt her covering up skills will serve her well. It is amazing that former Deputy Chief Constable Andy May, who has an outstanding criminal allegation against him for misconduct in public office, got a pay rise that enhanced his pension immediately before he took early retirement from Dorset Police. He was then given a nicely paid position on a Dorset NHS Trust Board. Boy, has the old boy network looked after them well in our big society, Mr. Cameron. Peter Harvey, who obstructed powers granted by statute in his failure to deal with criminal allegations against May, became chairman of Poole NHS Trust and made a Deputy Lord Lieutenant. Jane Stitchbury was also made a Deputy Lord Lieutenant. So too was Michael Taylor, chairman of the Police Authority, and another Dorset councillor and Police Authority member, Colonel Brearley. The main common denominator with all these people is the current Chief Executive of Dorset County Council, David Jenkins, who, with his other hat on his head, is clerk to the Dorset Lieutenancy. When Harvey was Chief Executive of Dorset County Council, David Jenkins was already being well groomed to supersede Harvey. Jenkins was head of the County Council Legal Department, totally immersed in the incestuous nature of the Dorset authorities and their misuse of ratepayers' money. In the early 90s, Jenkins allowed a subordinate lawyer, Mike Davis, who was married at that time to the Dorset Police Deputy Chief Constable Sue Davis, to be officially tasked with defending civil litigation for Dorset Police Force that their officers had provoked. This was done using County Council time and resources, despite this being unethical. The County Council Legal Department has still been defending and provoking civil litigation as current practice with the blessings of David Jenkins. To understand more fully the incestuous nature of the Dorset authorities, we need to look at the Joint Committee for the appointment of members to the Dorset Police Authority. As you know, they are all pissing in the same pot, or to give it its correct Latin legal term, introvirus. We will start with Councillor Les Amis, whose Masonic Lodge is on Portland. He is a former member of the Police Authority who runs with the hare and hunts with the hounds. He knows all about the police misconduct and its interface with the misconduct of lawyers in the County Council Legal Department. He has had extensive face-to-face meetings with our organisation. On one occasion, he told us that Michael Taylor was a Mason, something Taylor later denied. However, Les would know the handshake, wouldn't he? We now take a look at Colonel Geoffrey Brearley, CBE, a current Police Authority member, who from April 2009 to March 2010 received £11,082 remuneration from the Police Authority, on top of the several thousands of pounds for being a councillor. Is it not unethical that Police Authority members are on the committee that appoints themselves onto the Police Authority? Another one with his snout heavily in the trough is Councillor David Crowhurst, who from April 2009 to March 2010 received £4,420 remuneration for being a member of the Police Authority. This is on top of the thousands he gets for being a councillor. Is it not unethical for this Police Authority member to be serving on the committee that appoints himself as a member of the Police Authority? We now take a look at County Councillor Trevor Jones, OBE, who gets paid twice, once from Dorset County Council and again with thousands more from West Dorset District Council, where he has been involved in the Dorchester area for over 25 years. He is fully aware of what our organisation has brought to his attention relating to the police and the County Council Legal Department throughout all that time. We now take a look at Angus Campbell, who receives payment as a councillor from North Dorset District Council, as well as thousands more from Dorset County Council. He is another one who has been extensively lobbied by our organisation over a number of years with regards to the unhealthy interface between the police and lawyers in the County Council Legal Department, and he is fully aware of their hanky-panky and waste of ratepayers' money in the Barry Hunt case. Campbell likes to ignore this. Why should he rock the boat? He has got money. Loads of ratepayers' money. All of this has been going on under the auspices of David Jenkins, the Chief Executive of Dorset County Council. Between 2009 and 2010, Jenkins was paid a salary of £197,000. That is more than the Prime Minister earns. How is that for your big society, Mr. Cameron? This includes a salary of £164,306, a car lease subsidy of £4,500, a medical insurance of £1,275. No wonder Jenkins is arrogant. He can afford to be. You, the ratepayers, are paying for it. Here we have Chief Superintendent Jill Donnell, MBE. We are told she is paid a salary of over £100,000 a year, although this is unconfirmed. We would not be surprised if this figure is correct, because along with Martin Baker, she serves on the Dorset Criminal Justice Board, and her salary would naturally reflect this. In 1997, she was involved in covering up police misconduct surrounding the hanky-panky of Dorset Police, facilitating the theft of a man's jeep. The Dorset Criminal Justice Board only serves to exasperate an already bad situation. You have the senior coppers having tea and sandwiches at board meetings with senior Crown prosecutors like Roger Hall. No wonder you cannot get any criminal indictments against the police or police authority members for misconduct. Furthermore, the Criminal Justice Board are using government money to go on the piss. They hold awards ceremonies at the Marriott Hotel in Bournemouth, where they treat it like a Masonic ladies' night, out with their partners, drinking wine and eating fine food, paid for by you, the taxpayer, all with their snouts heavily in that trough. Another abuse of taxpayers' money, with all these public officials having another jolly. Here we see them cutting a cake using the High Sheriff of Dorset's sword at a jolly involving the Dorset Streetwise Partnership Trust. This is yet another Quango body that is registered at Companies House as a company limited by guarantee. The director of this body receiving reimbursement at the taxpayer's expense. So much for David Cameron's big society. It is fine if you are on the inside of it like this lot are, but if you are out on the fringe, then expect to be shafted. Board only serves to exasperate an already bad situation. You have the senior coppers having tea and sandwiches at board meetings with senior Crown prosecutors like Roger Hall. No wonder you cannot get any criminal indictments against the police or police authority members for misconduct. Furthermore, the Criminal Justice Board are using government money to go on the piss. They hold awards ceremonies at the Marriott Hotel in Bournemouth, where they treat it like a Masonic ladies' night, out with their partners, drinking wine and eating fine food, paid for by you, the taxpayer, all with their snouts heavily in that trough. These are official standards for members of authorities. Don't bring your authority or office into disrepute. Don't use the authority's resources for party political purposes. Don't compromise the impartiality of people who work for your authority. Don't discriminate against people on the grounds of race, gender, disability, religion or belief, sexual orientation and age. Don't bully, intimidate or attempt to intimidate others. Don't use your position improperly for personal gain or to advantage your friends or close associates. Don't attend meetings or be involved in decision making where you have a prejudicial interest, except when speaking when the general public are also allowed to do so. Don't disclose confidential information other than in exceptional circumstances. Refer to the Code of Conduct and our guide if you are unsure. Don't prevent anyone getting information they are entitled to. Personal and prejudicial interests. You have a personal interest if the issue being discussed in the meeting affects the well-being or finances of you, your family or your close associates, more than most other people who live in the area affected by the issue. Personal interests are also things that relate to an interest you must register. Prejudicial interests are personal interests that affect you, your family, or your close associates in the following ways: their finances, or regulatory functions such as licensing or planning which affect them.